Imagine this. A doctor who has spent decades treating aging patients isn't talking about pills, machines, or complicated routines. Instead, he points to something you can do in under 15 seconds with your own hands anywhere at any time. A small action that helps calm the nervous system, reduce internal tension, and support the body systems most closely linked to stroke risk after 60. Here's what really matters as we age. Stroke risk doesn't rise only because of blocked arteries or blood pressure numbers. It rises because the nervous system stays stuck in a state of chronic alertness. The body remains tense, breathing becomes shallow, blood vessels stay constricted, the heart works harder than it needs to. Over time, this constant internal pressure creates the conditions where serious events become more likely. In Japan, especially among the oldest physicians and longevity-focused doctors, there is a deep understanding that calming the nervous system is not optional. It is protective. When the body can regularly shift into a relaxed state, blood flow improves, pressure stabilizes, and the brain receives steadier oxygen delivery. This video walks you through a simple sequence used in clinical and traditional settings to trigger that calming response quickly. It doesn't replace medical care, it doesn't promise miracles, but it supports the systems that medicine often struggles to influence directly: the autonomic nervous system, vascular tone, and stress response. You'll notice that none of these techniques require effort. That's intentional. The nervous system does not relax through force. It relaxes through signals of safety. Gentle touch, slow breathing, and specific sensory input tell the brain that it can lower the alarm. The first part involves the tongue. Most people don't realize how closely the tongue is linked to the nervous system. When the tongue is tense, the jaw tightens. When the jaw tightens, the neck and upper chest follow. This tension subtly restricts breathing and blood flow. By simply allowing the tongue to rest in a specific position, you send a signal of relaxation upward and downward through the nervous system. As you listen, imagine lightly placing the tip of your tongue on the soft ridge just behind your upper front teeth. Not pressing, just resting. The rest of the tongue remains relaxed in the mouth. This position is used in both medical breathing techniques and traditional practices because it helps quiet excessive neural firing. You may notice the jaw soften and the throat feel more open almost immediately. Next comes the ear. The ear is not just for hearing. Certain areas of the outer ear connect directly to pathways involved in heart rate, blood pressure regulation, and stress response. Gentle stimulation of these areas has been shown to activate calming signals through the vagus nerve. Using a fingertip, imagine applying very light pressure and small circular movements to the small flap of cartilage in front of the ear opening and the hollow just outside the ear canal. The touch is slow, gentle, and almost absent of effort. This is not massage, it is stimulation. Many people feel a subtle sense of warmth or ease spread through the neck and chest within seconds. Finally, breathing ties everything together. Short, rapid breathing keeps the body in a state of alertness. Longer, slower exhales do the opposite. They tell the brain that danger has passed. By breathing in quietly through the nose for 3 seconds and exhaling through lightly pursed lips for 5 seconds, you guide the body into a calmer rhythm. You may notice the heartbeat slow slightly. The shoulders drop. The face softens. This is not imagination. It is physiology responding to a clear signal. The entire sequence takes about 15 seconds. Tongue relaxed. Gentle ear stimulation. Slow breathing. That's it. No strain, no equipment, no special conditions. This is why doctors who focus on longevity emphasize practices like this. They work upstream. They reduce the background stress load that quietly damages blood vessels and strains the heart over years. As you continue watching, you'll understand why calming the nervous system is one of the most overlooked tools in protecting brain health after 60, and how small daily habits like this can support the body in ways that medications alone cannot. The tongue relaxation technique appears almost too simple to matter, yet it influences one of the most sensitive and powerful regulatory systems in the human body. The tongue is not an isolated muscle. It is deeply connected to the jaw, the throat, the neck, and the upper chest, all areas that play a critical role in breathing quality, blood flow to the brain, and nervous system balance. When the tongue holds tension, the body interprets that tension as a signal of alertness, even when there is no external danger. Here's what really happens over time. As people age, stress does not only come from life events. It comes from subtle, constant patterns of muscular tension that go unnoticed. The tongue is one of the most common places where this tension accumulates. Many people press the tongue downward, pull it back, or clench it against the teeth without realizing it. This tension tightens the jaw. The jaw tension pulls on the muscles of the neck. The neck tension restricts the upper airway and subtly limits blood flow and breathing depth. This chain reaction has consequences. Breathing becomes shallow. Oxygen delivery becomes less efficient. The heart compensates by working harder. Blood vessels stay slightly constricted. Over years, this background state of tension contributes to elevated blood pressure, reduced recovery from stress, and increased strain on the cardiovascular system. These are not dramatic changes. They are quiet, gradual shifts that increase stroke risk without obvious warning signs. By simply allowing the tongue to rest gently on the soft ridge just behind the upper front teeth, something important changes. This position is not forced. There is no pressing, no holding, no effort. The tip of the tongue rests lightly while the rest of the tongue relaxes in the mouth. This posture is the same position the tongue naturally assumes when the body is deeply calm or asleep. When the tongue rests there, sensory receptors send signals to the brainstem indicating safety. The jaw begins to soften. The muscles of the face release tension. The throat opens slightly, allowing airflow to become smoother and quieter. These changes may feel subtle, but they are powerful. The nervous system responds not to conscious thought, but to physical signals like this one. One of the reasons this technique is so effective after 60 is that it bypasses willpower. You don't have to convince yourself to relax. The body receives a direct message through sensory input. This is especially important because the aging nervous system often becomes less flexible. It stays activated longer after stress. Simple, physical cues help restore that flexibility. As the tongue relaxes, breathing often shifts automatically. Inhalations become less noisy, exhalations lengthen slightly, the diaphragm moves more freely. This improves oxygen exchange and reduces pressure in the chest. The heart no longer needs to beat as forcefully to circulate blood. This reduces wear on blood vessels over time. You may notice additional effects. Swallowing feels easier. Saliva production may increase slightly, which is another sign of parasympathetic activation. The eyes may feel less strained. These responses reflect a shift away from chronic alertness toward regulation. What makes this technique especially valuable is how often it can be used. It can be practiced while sitting, standing, walking, or lying down. It can be done during moments of stress, before sleep, or when waking up. Over time, repeating this posture retrains the nervous system's baseline state. Instead of returning automatically to tension, the body learns to settle more easily. There's also an indirect effect on posture. When the tongue and jaw relax, the head tends to align more naturally over the spine. Forward head tension decreases. This reduces strain on the neck arteries that supply blood to the brain. While this is not a treatment, it is a supportive habit that promotes healthier alignment and circulation. The tongue's connection to the vagus nerve is not direct in the way ear stimulation is, but it is influential. By reducing tension around the airway and neck, the environment surrounding the vagus nerve becomes less compressed. This allows vagal signaling to function more efficiently. Efficient vagal signaling is associated with better heart rate variability, improved blood pressure regulation, and reduced inflammation. Another overlooked benefit is emotional regulation. Chronic tongue and jaw tension are often associated with anxiety and worry. Releasing that tension sends feedback to the brain that it no longer needs to maintain a defensive state. This can reduce mental agitation and support clearer thinking, especially in older adults who feel easily overwhelmed. The key to this technique is gentleness. The moment it becomes effortful, its effectiveness decreases. The tongue rests, the jaw softens, the breath flows naturally. The body receives the signal. Practiced consistently, the small adjustment becomes a habit rather than an exercise. And habits that quietly reduce internal tension are some of the most protective behaviors for long-term brain and cardiovascular health after 60. The 15-second ear technique works because it speaks directly to the nervous system. Through one of the body's most sensitive sensory gateways, the outer ear is not just a structure for hearing. It contains areas that connect to pathways responsible for regulating heart rate, blood pressure, inflammation, and internal tension. These pathways are closely linked to the vagus nerve, a major communication channel between the brain and the organs. As people move past 60, the nervous system often loses flexibility. Stress responses linger longer than they should. Heart rate takes more time to settle. Blood pressure stays elevated after emotional or physical strain. This reduced ability to recover is one of the hidden contributors to stroke risk. It's not only the presence of stress that matters, but how long the body remains in a stress state. Here's what really happens. When the nervous system perceives threat, whether physical or emotional, it activates a protective response. Blood vessels narrow, the heart pumps more forcefully, muscles tense. This response is useful in short bursts, but damaging when it becomes chronic. Over years, this constant internal pressure strains the vascular system, particularly in the brain. The ear technique provides a direct, nonverbal signal that interrupts this pattern. By gently stimulating specific regions of the outer ear, particularly the tragus and the concha, sensory receptors send calming signals inward. These signals do not require conscious interpretation. They travel along neural pathways that influence autonomic regulation almost immediately. What's important is the quality of the touch. This is not massage and not pressure meant to release muscle knots. The touch is light, slow, and intentional. Using a fingertip, small circular movements are applied gently, almost as if reminding the nervous system that it is safe. When done correctly, the body responds quickly. Many people notice subtle changes within seconds. The jaw loosens, the neck feels less tight, the chest softens. These sensations reflect a shift from sympathetic dominance, the state of alertness, toward parasympathetic dominance, the state associated with rest and recovery. This shift is critical for vascular health. The vagus nerve plays a central role here. When vagal activity increases, heart rate slows slightly, blood pressure stabilizes, and inflammation markers tend to decrease. While this technique is not a medical treatment, it supports the same regulatory systems that protect the heart and brain over time. One of the reasons this technique is especially effective for older adults is that it does not depend on effort or mobility. It can be done while sitting, standing, or lying down. It does not require flexibility, strength, or coordination. This makes it accessible even during moments of fatigue, anxiety, or physical limitation. Another important aspect is predictability. The nervous system responds best to consistent, gentle input. Practicing this technique regularly trains the body to recognize the sensation as a signal for calm. Over time, the response becomes faster and more reliable. This improved responsiveness is a marker of nervous system health. You may also notice emotional effects. Many people report a sense of grounding or quiet focus after practicing the ear technique. This is not placebo. Emotional regulation is deeply tied to autonomic balance. When the body is calmer, the mind often follows. This technique is particularly useful during moments when blood pressure feels elevated, during emotional stress, before sleep, or after startling events. These are moments when the nervous system struggles most to self-regulate. Providing a direct sensory cue helps shorten the duration of the stress response. It's also worth noting that this approach aligns with practices used in clinical settings, including certain forms of auricular therapy and non-invasive vagus nerve stimulation research. While those applications may involve devices or medical supervision, the underlying principle remains the same. Gentle stimulation of specific ear regions influences autonomic tone. Consistency matters more than duration. 15 seconds practice multiple times a day can have a cumulative effect. The goal is not to force relaxation, but to remind the nervous system repeatedly that it can let go. Over time, this reminder reshapes baseline tension levels. Another benefit is improved awareness. Practicing this technique increases sensitivity to internal states. People become more aware of when they are tense and more capable of responding early before stress escalates. Early intervention is one of the most effective ways to protect vascular health. The simplicity of this technique is its strength. No tools, no preparation, just a fingertip, gentle motion, and attention. In a body that has spent decades responding to stress, small signals like this can create meaningful change. By supporting nervous system regulation in this way, the ear technique helps reduce the background physiological strain that quietly increases stroke risk over time, making it a valuable daily habit for anyone over 60 seeking to protect brain and cardiovascular health. The calming breath pattern is the final and most powerful part of the sequence because breathing is the only system in the body that can be both automatic and consciously guided. This unique quality makes it a direct bridge between the thinking brain and the nervous system that controls heart rate, blood pressure, and vascular tone. As people age, this bridge often becomes underused, even though it remains one of the most effective ways to stabilize the body internally. Here's what really happens after 60. Breathing tends to become shorter, faster, and more shallow, especially during stress, worry, or physical effort. The chest does most of the work. The exhale becomes rushed. This pattern sends a constant signal of urgency to the brain, even when no immediate threat exists. Over time, this keeps the body locked in a low grade stress state. This state has consequences. Heart rate stays elevated longer than necessary. Blood vessels remain slightly constricted. Blood pressure fluctuates more aggressively. The brain receives less consistent oxygen delivery. These changes don't cause immediate symptoms, but they quietly increase the strain on the cardiovascular system and raise the risk of serious events like stroke. The calming breath pattern interrupts this cycle by changing one key variable, the length of the exhale. Inhaling through the nose for 3 seconds brings air in quietly and efficiently. Exhaling through lightly pursed lips for 5 seconds does something more important. It tells the nervous system that it is safe to slow down. The longer exhale activates parasympathetic pathways associated with the vagus nerve. This activation signals the heart to beat more slowly and evenly. It encourages blood vessels to relax rather than constrict. It reduces unnecessary muscle tension throughout the body. These effects begin within seconds. You may notice that after just a few cycles, the body feels heavier in a pleasant way. The shoulders drop. The jaw softens. The face relaxes. These are not imagined sensations. They reflect a real shift in autonomic balance from alertness toward regulation. One reason this breathing pattern is so effective is that it works with the body rather than against it. There is no breath holding, there is no forced inhalation. The nose filters and warms the air naturally. The pursed lips during exhale create gentle resistance, which slows the airflow and enhances the calming signal without effort. This resistance also improves gas exchange. Allowing carbon dioxide levels to rise slightly during the longer exhale helps blood vessels relax. This improves oxygen delivery to the brain and tissues. Efficient oxygen delivery reduces the heart's workload and supports clearer thinking. As people age, recovery becomes more important than capacity. It's not about how fast the heart can beat, but how quickly it can calm down. This breathing pattern improves recovery. It trains the nervous system to return to baseline more efficiently after stress, exertion, or emotional stimulation. You may also notice improvements in sleep. Practicing this breath before bed helps the nervous system disengage from the day. Heart rate variability improves. The transition into sleep becomes smoother. Better sleep supports blood pressure regulation, inflammation control, and cognitive health. Another important benefit is emotional regulation. Anxiety often expresses itself through breathing before it shows up as thoughts. By guiding the breath, you interrupt anxiety at its physical source. This does not eliminate stress, but it prevents stress from spiraling into prolonged physiological activation. The simplicity of the pattern makes it easy to integrate. It can be practiced while sitting in a chair, standing in line, lying in bed, or walking slowly. It does not draw attention. It does not require privacy. This ease of use encourages consistency. When combined with tongue relaxation and gentle ear stimulation, the breath pattern locks in the calming response. The tongue reduces tension in the airway and neck. The ear stimulation activates sensory calming pathways. The breath stabilizes rhythm and circulation. Together, they send a unified message to the nervous system. Over time, repeated exposure to this breathing pattern can reshape baseline breathing habits. Inhales become quieter, exhales lengthen naturally. The body becomes more efficient at conserving energy and maintaining internal balance. This is especially important for stroke risk because vascular events are often preceded by periods of prolonged physiological stress. Supporting the body's ability to calm itself reduces cumulative strain on blood vessels. It lowers the frequency and intensity of pressure spikes that damage delicate tissues over time. The most important aspect of this breathing pattern is gentleness. The moment it becomes forced, its effectiveness diminishes. The breath should feel smooth, quiet, and steady. The body should feel supported, not controlled. Practiced regularly, even for short periods, this calming breath pattern becomes more than a technique. It becomes a habit of regulation, one that supports heart health, brain health, and resilience as the body ages.